Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Joe and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
I got some news from my doctor.
Yeah?
He told me if I didn't stop worrying, it was going to be really bad for my health. I went back to the doc 2 weeks later. He said, "You look great. Your blood pressure is down. What did you do?" I said, "Doc, I took your advice. I stopped worrying."
How
He
did you
said,
do that?
"That's what he asked." And I said, "Well, I hired somebody to work for me.
You hired somebody to worry for you. How much you paying that guy?
$4,000 a week.
$4,000 a week. How are you going to afford that?
I'm not worried about it. That's his job."
We are living at a time right now where a lot of people in our community are feeling very worried. If you turn on the news, there's always things that are there to make you upset, make you frustrated. If you are just alive as a human, if you have a job, if you have family or friendships, if you live in the world, there are things to make you worry.
If you want to find something to worry, it'll never stop. It's been that way since the beginning of time. For example, you can worry about yourself. You can worry about your family. You can worry about your community. You can worry about your county or your state. You can worry about your federal government. It never stops. You can find things to worry about. I read once 90% of what we worry about doesn't come true. So if you worry and it doesn't come true, you suffer for no reason at all. If you worry and it does come true, you suffer twice. Try to keep from worrying, and you will be a happier person.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't actual things that are bad that are going on and things that we do need to keep an eye out for. We need to be vigilant and watching, especially for our community, and making sure that everybody is safe and checking in on one another. But I know many of my friends that right now are overly worried in ways that they can't put into practice. There's nothing that you can do about it. It doesn't make you healthier, it doesn't make you better, it doesn't stop any of what's happening. It doesn't make us safer or anything. All it does is make our current lives more miserable. Forget it. I don't want to live that way. I would like to live so that I don't have to worry about what some politician is doing that's making me frustrated today. There are some steps we can take. There's some resources we have.
What do you think is one of the strongest resources?
I always think of the verse, be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. If you're a person of faith, that verse may resonate with you. If you're not, there is a principle here, and that is the principle of prayer or meditation or just simply practicing mindfulness. That there is an element where we get away from it all, we turn off all of those outside things. So, whether you call it prayer or you call it meditation or you call it mindfulness, it's a resource that can counteract all of those things.
I was running my company and we were going through what they defined as the Great Recession, which took place in 2008 and beyond. And it was tough for a lot of people in many ways. People were having a hard time making their house payments and they were losing their houses and they're just, I could go on and on with all of the problems. Well, with me, the problem right up front was the company. There was a lot of challenges. We were losing some of our clients, we were losing some of our readers. And I shouldn't say some, I should say many. It was such a challenging time for me. During that time, I had to try to not worry about it. I did prayer and I did mindfulness, and the two together did help carry me through a very difficult time. They by themselves weren't the only thing. I discovered other tools along the way, and they helped as well. And we'll get to those later on. But clearly, prayer carrying me through, mindfulness also helping to carry me through, made it easier for me to deal with a situation that was not totally uncontrollable, but I would say 90% uncontrollable. And we did make it through.
They say with mindfulness that humans are the only animal that thinks about the future. We project forward and we tell ourselves stories about how things are going to be in the future. And the reason that mindfulness can work so well is you take yourself out of that future orientation and you ground yourself in the present, in the sights and the smells and the feelings of the things right there, right in the moment. You're not living in the future, you're living in the present. And right now in the present, things aren't so bad. When you focus on those things, your brain can't do both. You can't worry about how things are going to be and also focus on your physical environment at the moment. Your brain can only do one or the other. So, practicing mindfulness is a great way to overcome that, to get your mind off of that worry, to bring it back and to ground yourself in the here and now. But that's not all we can do. Once we have done those things, then we can turn back to the external world. And there's no point focusing on the things we can't change, but there are plenty of things that we can change. So, what's the next resource that we have, Dad?
Like you said, we can't control everything, but you can control your own actions. I can control my own actions. I can control my thoughts and how I respond to situations. Decisive action. That's the part that I have some input with. Setting boundaries and focusing on small positive changes can help ease anxiety. It makes complete sense. Your sister used to say, it'll work out. It always does. And she was right.
I remember she would say that at times where it was like in the moment you would feel like just be quiet. I'm really worried about things.
Yeah.
But then in the end it did work out and you would think, well, she was right. But boy, it sure felt like in that moment that it was not going to work out at all, did it?
Just think back 20 years of the things you were really concerned about. They have kind of taken a back seat to what we worry about now. And they're not an issue anymore, or they're not blown up to become an issue, to be something that everyone is worried about because it will create some problems for us in the future.
When my kids were young, I used to tell them, you can't control your feelings, but you can control your actions. As you know, as small kids always like to blame their actions on whatever their emotions are. Well, I couldn't help myself. I was mad, and that's why I hit my sister. And I would have to say, no, I understand you can't control your emotions, but you can control your, and then they would say actions. Yes, that's right. You can control your actions. And
That's
then
true.
they would recognize that they would get in trouble. Or when then we got to the point where when we would start to see them getting into that place, I would say, you can't control your emotions, but you can control your, and then they would remember actions and not always, but sometimes, then they would make a different choice. Well, sometimes for us as adults, we have more adult ways of dealing with it, but still, there's times where we tell ourselves, well, I'm just angry. So I had to go and do whatever stupid thing that I did. No, you don't. You can't control your emotions, but you can control your actions. And the more you control your actions, the more your feelings will follow. The more you act in ways that are decisive and are taking the authority and the autonomy and the ability that you do have right now to make a better situation, the more your emotions follow afterwards and you realize, I don't need to be so worried after all.
So, what else is going to help to distract us from worry?
One of the best things that we can turn to is our relationships. That's how we started doing this podcast to begin with. Is that, Dad, you and I were focused on our relationship and some things that we could do. You had this idea of starting a podcast, but really originally we just thought of it as something that we would do together. And I've done that with my kids, tried to find ways. And some points I've been more successful in, at some points I've been less successful in finding ways to really cultivate those relationships. But the more we spend time with those relationships, the more we remember what's really important in life. And those things that can come in and try to take control of our thoughts and our emotions, we realize that those pale in comparison with the people that are really important to us.
And we realize when we interact with those people, how many people there are out there that truly care about us. And that's just wonderful. Just knowing that you're not alone makes a big difference. You know what I discovered a while ago because a friend told me about it was breaks from the noise. I was having lunch with him one day and he said to me, "Hey, you know what I did about a month ago? And I'm amazed at how much different it made me feel." He said, "I quit watching cable news." He, it made him much happier. He doesn't listen to any of that anymore. What often referred to as the noise. And whether the noise is from cable news or whether it's from any other news source you're getting, they seem to always be focusing on all the things that are wrong and rarely on the things that are right, even though there are some that will end their newscast with something like that. It's 3 minutes out of 30. And the difference is dramatic. There's other things as well that are part of the noise. There are people who are always negative all the time. I mentioned once in this podcast about somebody that I had a lot of respect for as a businessman. And his motto was, don't walk away from negative people, run. And I thought that was absolutely great advice. Hanging around negative people are just going to drag you down. They're part of the noise. And of course, you can do the same thing by getting caught up in posts on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all of those things.
You did not just say tic tac.
I did say TikTok. I've never been on it.
No, it's TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Yeah, that's right.
And really, it's not even Twitter anymore. It's X now, isn't it? And
That's
all
correct.
of those things, those algorithms are designed to make us angry. We talked about the algorithms on
Yeah.
this podcast in the past, and forget it. They understand that the best way to keep our attention is to make us as mad as we can be.
An interesting thing about that is we just finished a major election, and there were people running for all kinds of things, and they rarely said anything about what they were going to do. They spent all their time talking about what their opponent, how bad their opponent was. It was all negative. Oh, this person, if you vote for that person, they're going to do this or they're going to do that. Or if you vote for this person, they did these terrible things in the past. And they stole ice cream cones from little kids. And they would go on and on about that. And it was all things that would aggravate us. Well, I'm not going to vote for that. Therefore, I'm going to vote for you because you never did that. And they played off each other time and time again. It's all part of the noise. If you can separate yourself from the noise just for a while, you'll be amazed at how much of a fresh air you will be able to gather.
I'm Chuck Reynolds, and I started listening to Transcendent because Joe is my friend. I keep listening because I have friends, colleagues, and family members who are part of the LGBTQ community, and I want to better understand their struggles and perspectives. I have become a supporter because I believe Joe and Raya are truly helping to preserve relationships and save lives. Join me in supporting Transcendent. Just go to transcendent.com, click on support, and select the amount you'd like to give each month. It can be as little as $3, and you can cancel at any time.
One way that I have started taking a break from the noise kind of came out of nowhere. I had a turntable that I bought way back in high school. The belt on it has been broken for 10 or 15 years, but an old style record player. And it just sat there and sat and sat there. And I fired up my stereo again after I moved into my current house about a year ago. And I've been trying to use it more and more. I mean, I had years where the only music I would play would be on my phone. But I really like this old stereo system that I had from back in high school. I've been seeing at the store they have vinyl albums again. And I thought, I should go ahead and fire that thing up again. So I ordered some new belts and they got here and I set it all up and I cleaned it all up and I got it all ready. And I started playing some records again. And I will tell you, there is just something different about playing a record that I can take this thing out and I carefully handle it and I put it on. And some people say you get better sound quality. I can tell you, you don't. I think the sound quality is just as good through digital, at least to my ears. But boy, there is something about having that set aside time. What I will do is I'll put on that record and then I'll take a book. And now I have this time of a half hour on one side and a half hour on the other side, or 25 minutes, or however long it is. I listen all the way through and I can kind of get away from everything else. When the album is done, I get up and I take it off, and I dust it off, I put it back in the sleeve, I put it away again, and then I can go back to life. Taking that moment has given me space away from the noise.
You can achieve 25 minutes of peace in record time.
Yes, I sure can. That's actually a great segue to the next resource that we have, and that is any activity that brings us joy. There's lots of things that we can do. It's not just taking a break from the noise, but it's filling that break in with something that you enjoy, that that you love, that when you do it, you get into that state of flow and it makes you feel good about life. You connect with what's important.
That could be anything as simple as reading a book. And if you don't like to read, maybe you have a hobby. You spend some time with that hobby. It could be gardening. It could be baking. Each person has their own thing. You know what your thing is. Spend a little time doing that. Something you have enjoyed in the past. Get back to that and you will find your own record time.
It's something that gets you away from everything and it gets your mind focused on the thing that you're doing right there. How can you make that painting look as close to real life as you can? How can you make sure that your garden is everything that it needs to be and you're focused on what you love and what brings you joy? And while you're focused there, your focus is not on the other things.
Right.
There's one activity in particular that scientists have singled out as having special importance. What is that activity, Dad?
Exercise can be really important. I used to find when things were really tough, when I was running the company, the thing that would help would be to go out and go for a walk or go for a run. I happen to be a runner because At the time, I was training for a marathon, and it made it much easier to go out for a run. And by the time I finished that run, I was feeling considerably better about myself and about the situation as it was. I would look at it in a new perspective. And I'm not sure why that works, but I think part of it is the fact that it's just a dramatic exchange of oxygen, and that in itself helps, along with the fact that you allow your mind to wander and go into other things and enjoy the nature and those kinds of things. They all make a difference. But exercise at some point, whether it is you're going to the gym, doing weightlifting, whether you're swimming, whatever it happens to be, has been proven time and time again to really help with your entire mood.
I recently heard a podcast and I went to go find the research here and I was not able to find the research. But the way that the scientists described it is that when you put your body through that stress, your brain tries to recalibrate that you've just gone through this thing to really exert yourself, and to recalibrate, your brain ends up putting in more dopamine. So you become a little bit happier as a result of the strain that you put out. When you go out and you do it, you know you're doing something that's good for your body, but it's hard. You've got to exert that energy and that effort in order to do it. You know it gets you healthier. You know it takes that effort to do, and then your brain recalibrates afterwards, and you can feel really amazing. That's why they call it the runner's high. Right now, it's too cold for me to go running outside. I do try to go on the treadmill, but I don't do nearly as much as I do in the summertime. But the times when I'm going every single day out running or every other day running, and then I miss a day, I can feel it. I notice it. I notice
Oh,
I
that is
miss that.
true. I noticed it too. There is definitely a difference. Once you hit that level, you realize it does make a difference for you every day.
That brings us to the last resource that we want to talk about here, is that no matter what's going on, find those places of celebration. Celebration is a great resource when you're worried, but you find those bright points in your life, you find the things that are going well, and you intentionally celebrate those. That's a resource you can use to counteract those negative thoughts and those worries and those anxieties.
It helps you to stop and realize, hey, something good did happen today. And in reality, something good happens every day. You met a new person. Someone held the door for you. There are people out there that are saying something to you that's positive. They might not even know you. Anything that's worth celebrating, or you did something for someone else, or you showed gratitude for something else. If you want someone to like you, do something for them. But what's even more interesting, if you want them to like you and you ask them to do something for you, they tend to like you even more. So if somebody's done something for you, that is something that you can realize they did because it made them like you even more. And those are all easy steps to take to cut down on the worry you do, because the worry that you do and the worry that you carry with you, when it becomes your total focus or the biggest focus of your day, it really can bring you down, and it can affect not only your mental but your physical health as well. So using these ideas, taking just one of these and trying it, I encourage you to do that if you want to relieve yourself from this pain, because it truly is pain, not necessarily the kind that we always think of. But believe me, it will do the same kind of negative things to your body and to your mind as any other pain will.
Absolutely. It is a huge pain. But one thing that is never a pain is this podcast. We are grateful to have you coming here week after week as we are your voice of positivity, bringing you ideas and things, tips that you can implement to make your world a better life. Next week, we have an amazing episode. We're going to be talking about how to counteract internalized homophobia. Where for this week, we were talking about kind of the worry of the things that are external to us. Next week, we're going to look at what do we do when we're dealing with negative self perceptions or we just feel bad about ourselves specifically in ways that we've internalized the homophobia that the world has given us and we feel like that's part of us. We've got some great tips that are coming up for that.
I'd like to ask you to do something for me because I want you to like me. Tell them a little bit about our new presence on YouTube.
We just got our account up and running a couple weeks ago on YouTube. So we took our entire backlog of our episodes and we loaded them all up. So if you prefer to listen to podcasts on YouTube, YouTube is my preferred place to go. I can go now and on Monday morning when I open up my phone and I take a look at what's new on YouTube, the very first thing that comes up now is Transcendent Podcast. And you can also go now onto Facebook. If you go and search for Transcendent, we've got our own page there, and we're going to try to keep the discussion going there. If you've got ideas or thoughts or ways that this episode impacted you, go to Facebook and drop us a comment, and let's have a discussion. How do you feel about this? What are some things that you do or some resources that you use for overcoming worry?
And with that, we'll see you Monday.
There's one activity in particular that scientists have singled out as having special importance. What is that activity, Dad?
I have no idea.
It's our it's our next point.